From the PEN studios, this is the Imperfect Moms Club with your hosts, Lisa and Brittany.
This week on Imperfect, we revisit a great interview with Dr. Elena Bruun.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
We're really excited to have you. I wanted to talk first about postpartum depression because it's something that affected me greatly. And so I wanted to kind of not just, Brittany and I have talked about it from personal experience, but I wanted to talk to you, especially from, your experiences, with clients and plus in your own life, if you also struggled with it,
I definitely did. I've had every symptom in the book. That's why this is so easy for me. There are three main components of it. And I will tell you about myself, and feel free to follow up with questions about me or clients I've seen, whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a hormonal shift that makes many of us just subject to it from a physiological point of view. Mm-hmm. Our body chemistry changes pretty radically with the birth of a baby, first gearing up to be pregnant and then having the baby be separated. So I'm not an expert on that. You have to have a gynecologist on or an obstetrician. But then there's a psychological aspect in that, at least in our society, there's a sudden sense of overwhelming responsibility for a new life. Mm-hmm. And the pressures are mostly on women still. It's amazing. It may be a silent pressure, but it's there, and most of us feel it. And the only women who escape it are those who had parents who they could just blindly follow. Very good parenting themselves, so that they're not questioning what they're doing every minute. And their mothers are around and alive and telling them they're doing a great job. And when they can't handle it, grandmother comes in and takes over, and things will go more smoothly. Doesn't mean you won't be depressed, but it probably won't be as bad. Mm-hmm. So there's that. And then there's the social, societal expectations that dump a whole other set of requirements of us. Not only do we have to be nice, good, loving mothers, our kids have to be extremely successful. Mm-hmm. And we have to juggle both work now because we fought for the opportunity and parenting. And I have clients. I had one this morning on a Sunday who was very upset because although she is extremely accomplished, that's her problem. She has two young kids, 8 and 3, I think their ages are. And if she could really control things, she would quit her very high-powered job in city government to be with her kids for a couple of years now. That's what she really wants, but she can't get out of the job market. And she works on women's issues in city government, so she's doing very important work. But she showed me her calendar online, and it was filled, every 15 minutes. And she had 1 hour with nothing in it for the whole day. And I said, well, what do you do in that hour? Why aren't you busy? Because a lot of what I do is fun sarcasm, and she understands it. And she said, well, that's when I do my 8-hour job in that 1 hour.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wow.
And she carries on anyway, but she freaks out, I'm doing that in quotes, at times because it just becomes too much. I could go into way more about her, and she gave me permission to talk. because she's such a classic, not necessarily for postpartum, but for an overwhelmed mother. And I didn't know her then, but she said she had a terrible case of postpartum depression psychologically. I don't know if you're aware of how it used to be in the Middle Ages, but that's okay, because I'll tell you. I wasn't there. But kids didn't belong to their nuclear family the way they do now, where all the responsibility is usually on the mother. Sometimes there are fathers who are expected to do things too, but kids belonged to the village, and they would just wander around. This is in Europe. And if something went wrong, another parent would, deal with it. Mm-hmm. We just don't have that, except I could tell you a very strange experience I had when my now 50-year-old son was a baby in the postpartum situation. Mm-hmm. I had a friend who had a baby herself, a neighbor and friend, watch my son for a couple of hours. I don't remember what I was doing or where I was going. It was 50 years ago. When I came back, she told me she had nursed my baby.
Oh, someone did that to me when I was a baby.
Did you have that?
My mom came back and got me. She dropped me off at a church nursery, and after service, she came and got me, and she's like, "Oh, she was hungry, so I nursed her."
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
And we were both nursing mothers. Isn't that it? Blew me. I wasn't angry. I wish she could have told me, but there were no cell phones. She could have called me, but she couldn't. And now I think, oh yes, that's the way it used to be. And I gather in Japan, they give babies over to grandmothers, and the grandmothers are still sometimes young enough to have milk and nurse the baby. I mean, it's just the pressure is spread out to care for this new life, and we just don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to tell you something else that you might not have thought of, and even if you saw a therapist about it, it might not have come up. But I had an experience when I was working in a clinic. A psychiatrist came in who had just had a baby, and she was wonderful, but she was very, very upset. She didn't have her baby with her. She was working that day, and she said, "I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do." And she was walking around where the secretaries all were, and there were therapists off duty. So there was a little group of 3 or 4 of us. And she said, I can't stand it. And we said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "Well, I keep feeling like I'm going to drop my baby." Pick her up. So I don't pick her up.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized along with doing some reading, and we were all discussing it, there was a sense in which she wanted to drop her baby too. Mm-hmm. She was angry at the predicament that she was in as a new mother with all that weight on her shoulders. She was in charge of the clinic. It was too much. And the idea that it's okay for you to even be angry that you have to be a new mother, whether you wanted it or didn't want it, accident, not accident, just suddenly being thrown into this impossible role. I really think it is not possible to do it perfectly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act, because I'm a working mom. And I remember when I first got pregnant, I was the director of a preschool, and I think I was teaching kindergarten at the same time and teaching a preschool class. And they're like, "Okay, well, we'd like you to do all 3." And I'm like, "Well, listen, I'm going to be going to part-time here." you can pick 2 things. And it was a really hard year. And I was only doing 2 things and I was part-time, but I had a new baby, you know, and I struggled with the postpartum depression and like intrusive thoughts. I'm like, where did this even come from?
Yes.
Like, it would freak me out. I thought it was crazy.
Yep.
So I did not give 100% in all of the areas. Like I couldn't, it was impossible.
So I never, towards the end of my first pregnancy, I have 2 daughters now, but my oldest is 2. And so towards the end of that, I actually quit my job. So I wanted to stay at home. And so I didn't have a job on top of being a mom, but going from not having all those responsibilities of motherhood to all of a sudden, so for me, the depression really started with anger. Like I just felt this anger all the time. Like most of the time I was so mad, and I was mad at my baby. And I remember, and I knew the worst part was that I knew it was irrational. Like I knew that it was because of, but I couldn't help it, which, made me feel like I was crazy, because I was like, Lisa, why can't you just get out of this? This is irrational. But I just, and so I would look at my baby who was screaming her head off because she's hungry. And I couldn't look at it through the lens of she's a newborn and that's how she communicates. I was looking at it through my lens. And so I was like, I don't understand why you can't just wait, or just see that mommy is getting your bottle, or like just wait 2 minutes. Like, newborn doesn't know that, right? They're just hungry and they're crying. But I was so mad because she just wouldn't, and it was just, and then I was, it was rage, anger. I mean, anger's always been an easier emotion for me than, feeling sad or anything. So everything comes out as anger first. And then, and then eventually it got to a point where I just didn't feel anything one day. And then I just continued feeling nothing. And then I was like, okay, maybe this is just what motherhood is. This is what I wanted. I'm just going to feel like I started feeling all my emotions were muted. Like I couldn't even feel, like I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel all those positive things either. I just didn't feel anything. And so, I mean, thankfully,
because you cared too much, right? I worry about people women who don't care and just wish the baby were not there, right?
Yeah.
So, but go ahead, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no. I'm rambling. Sorry. But so I just, then thankfully, because I've been, most of my life have been followed by therapists, like, I was able to kind of realize, okay, something's not right here. But I can't help but think, there's so many women that just don't know. And so they just, so they've never seen a therapist, or maybe they've never, talked to someone about this. And so they wouldn't know to research postpartum. They don't even they don't know. Cause I mean, it's 2021, but I feel like we still don't talk about it as much as we should.
Absolutely not. And especially the angry part. You don't even realize, at least I didn't, that that's what was going on.
Yeah.
And it's normal. See, if we just understood that a lot of those feelings are normal, given the social pressure on us to be perfect, it's a normal reaction to an abnormal expectation.
Yeah.
And then you start criticizing yourself and buying into it, and pretty soon, you're in therapy land. But I have a way of talking about it that makes people more comfortable, that I just stumbled on. So if you want to talk about it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I can stick that in here. I once had a teenager, not long ago actually, who wouldn't do anything. She wouldn't go to school. She wouldn't wash the dishes. She wouldn't do her share in the household. She wouldn't get a job. She wouldn't walk the dog. You name it, she wouldn't do it. And her parents dragged her in. And I fell in love with her right away, because I always like the kids who don't behave, or who are quirky, or depressed, or whatever. That's why I'm a therapist. So I absolutely loved her. And I found myself saying to her, well, look, I know you don't want to be here because you don't want to do anything your parents want you to do. But I'm not a therapist anymore. I've given up the title. Now I'm just a consultant, and I am your private consultant. You hire me, and if you don't like me, you get to fire me. And she loved that. She started telling all her friends that she had a private. It was so funny, and it went smoothly from then on for a while.
It kind of makes me think, like, I guess maybe because that kind of gave her control over the situation versus, you know, she felt like she was being controlled by her parents were sending her to you, and then now, you know, she's the one that's hired you, and so it's under her control. I get that.
Yeah,
I totally get that.
I frankly love the concept because it removes me from the power position, which you're articulating right there. And that's very important because those of us who are with the newer kind of therapy today, rather than back in the old days, which we called the medical model, where the doctor is supreme and you listen to what usually he says you need to do, and what's wrong with you, you're talking to an equal who just struggles through life too, but may have more experience in this area than you do. And this kid, for example, was a tremendous artist. I can't draw to save myself. So she had that talent, and we just had fun together.
Yeah.
I think that's great because, you know, for me, I know at the beginning when I started realizing, okay, like the way I'm thinking isn't normal, like this isn't, something's wrong here. I was almost scared to go and talk to my doctor because I'm like, they're going to take my kid away, you know, because they're going to think I'm endangering them or something, which I wasn't. I was just having intrusive thoughts and I didn't want them there. I wasn't trying to make this happen. So, you know, I do like how it's changing and it's becoming a little more, I don't know, just one-on-one and personal and just a little more like quote unquote safe. Like we feel like it's a safe space. You can just say the crazy thing and your doctor isn't going to like, what?
Exactly. They're not going to overreact like a parent might or, you know, whatever. Absolutely. Someone explained it to me in my training. A good therapist is like a benign aunt or uncle. They care about you a lot, but they're not invested in what you decide or how well you function. They just love you. That's it. I think you have to have an emotional attachment to the clients you work with. I'm a huge believer in that. So it runs counter to the history of the field, but I'm not the only one. There are others who have discovered the power of that. By the way, there's a famous British psychologist who I should have read more of, but I know he applies here, named Donald Winnicott, who talks about anger in the postpartum period and in general about parenting, and is very reassuring about it. So I just studied up a little bit for this podcast and was very reassured myself that the notion of being angry is pretty universal.
And that kind of brings up something in my mind. So, I mean, it's not, so yes, there's the anger that's there, but then with the anger comes the shame. And I think shame is even worse because, you know, you're angry and you're feeling angry, but then you're shaming yourself for feeling angry, which is kind of just like a mind F.
Let's call it a double whammy. And wait, there's another aspect to it. Oh, yes. if you try to bottle up your anger and don't accept that it just comes with the territory, sometimes then you bottle up all the positive feelings too. And like you said, you didn't feel anything for a while.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the problem with, oh, I only love my baby. It's all joy. It isn't, but there's a lot of joy. Let's talk about that too, which you can feel and experience the thrill of helping to educate the next generation. But it comes with problems, and they're annoying. Children can be very annoying. At least I don't know about yours.
I'll be the first one to admit that sometimes kids can just be jerks. Like, I love you, but you're a jerk right now and you need to knock it off. Like,
absolutely. Well, that's a release of anger in a very healthy way. That's really good. I'd say that's good parenting. You're being a jerk, but you do it in a way that you're kind of with them. Yes. They know. I hope that you were a jerk when you were a kid too.
I call my mother and apologize all the time now.
Oh, that's so nice.
So I'm like, thank you for not giving me up for adoption. Thank you for loving me despite it all. I get it now. I'm sorry.
And it's so funny, like when, I remember when I was younger, my mom would say, you'll understand when you're a mom, you'll understand when you're a mom. And, when I was younger, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I won't. And then now I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Right. I've forgiven my mother too for a lot of things, I can tell you.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just a crazy thing, and plus, I mean, not even just after the baby's born, all the shift, but during the pregnancy, your emotions are heightened as well. Yeah. And that's a long time. So, I didn't even think about this, but I was talking to my husband a long time ago and I said, 9 months, because of fourth trimester, 12 months, that's a whole year of feeling different and feeling, and so it's such a long time that you start to get used to that, to feeling that way. And then you start to think that that's just who you are. And then, and so then I'm like, why am I like this? This is insane. Like, I'm crazy. Like, and I mean, I'm just now starting to normalize after having my second. She's 4 months old. And so now I'm finally back to like, oh, like, I'm not just insane all the time.
Not at all. The other thing that happens, I remember now, is people don't pay attention to you anymore. It's all about the baby.
Yeah.
And we, the mothers, there was a wonderful article in the New York Times Magazine section, which I happily hit on when one of my sons was young. And it said, when mothers need mothering.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember I had a stepsister who was wonderful, and she was 20 years older than me. She was joking, but when I brought my first baby to her house, we lived in different cities in New York, and I rang the bell, and she came to the door, and I said, "Hi, Shaw," and she said, "No, you move aside. I want the baby."
Yeah.
And she was kidding. She was kidding me. But it stuck with me forever, right? I could never be mad at her about it because I know she was just being funny.
Yeah.
But she was speaking for the society. You don't count anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember feeling that way. And now, so when one of my friends will have a new baby, I try and bring over a meal, something so she doesn't have to cook. And then I always try to put something in there for mom. Like, I'll find out what her favorite candy bar is, or I don't know, her favorite treat. And if there's a sibling, I'll throw something in there for them too, because that can be hard. Everyone's focused on the baby, not on me. Maybe I should throw something in there for dad. I've never thrown anything in there for dad. I don't know what.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, like I try to, do something nice for mom too, because she's going through a lot, like throwing her favorite chocolates, or they just brought me a coffee, and I I wasn't expecting it. They just popped over. They're like, here's a coffee and a muffin. Bye. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like it really meant a lot to me.
No, absolutely. It's mostly about us, right? If somebody said, what's your best piece of advice for a new mother? It's be nice to yourself first, because then you'll be happier and your kid will be okay, right? There was a book back in the day, I'm okay, you're okay. So if we're okay, because we're not blaming ourselves for this and that, our kids will be okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? Doesn't it somewhere? It's
Yeah.
so hard to apply. But
I think that's great. Yeah. Because I work with a lot of kids. So I say that a lot. It's like, if you don't see me freaking out, you don't need to freak out. It's all good.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
okay.
Exactly. Yes.
And sometimes I am freaking out, but I'm freaking out on the inside. So like, everything's fine. And then they leave. And I'm like,
Right.
now I can have a panic attack. Now you're gone.
Exactly.
But I think this is a great transition point. We'll take a quick commercial break and we're going to come right back in and we're going to talk about our children's mental health.
The Imperfect Moms Club is brought to you by
Look at that, huh? So they just magically showed up. I mean, literally, I just opened the door and they were there.
I ordered them, honey.
Oh!
We are very happy with our new Casper.
The Comfort is like a Lucius cloud, one of the softer clouds. But it's also a firm cloud, like a Aratio cloud. Always want to be a weatherman. Guess who I am?
It's the most exciting thing that's happened in our bedroom in a long time. A long time. Right?
I was on the fence about changing from a manual to an electric toothbrush, but my hygienist said going electric could lead to way cleaner teeth. She said get the one inspired by dentists, with the round brush head.
Go pro with Oral-B. Oral-B's gentle rounded brush head removes more plaque along the gum line for cleaner teeth and healthier gums. And unlike Sonicare, Oral-B is the first electric toothbrush brand accepted by the ADA for its effectiveness and safety.
What an amazing clean. I'll only use an Oral-B.
Oral-B. Brush like a pro.
This is the Imperfect Moms Club on PEN. Get in touch with the show through the PEN listener hotline at 833-PODS-NET. That's 833-763-7638. And now, back to the Imperfect Moms Club on the Podcast Entertainment Network.
All right. Well, welcome back from the break. This is an awesome conversation. I'm loving every minute of this. So now we're going to talk about our children's mental health at home, early signs of potential issues, things we can do to help, all that good stuff.
If your child, and I'm assuming now we're talking about school age kids, maybe age 3 to through high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Trouble sleeping, a lot of trouble, not occasional. These are all, the most normal kid in the world could have one or two experiences like what I'm going to list out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only when it becomes pretty extreme. So trouble sleeping, not eating, great difficulty concentrating on anything, no play dates or doesn't want them, nobody wants to play with me, a big sudden change in behavior, a kid who's very active suddenly is withdrawn and just sits around, sudden changes at home, such as parents or grandparents' illness, or even a death can happen and the school may not even know about it, or you don't count it because, gee, the kid didn't seem to like grandma that much, but why is she so upset? So you also want to make sure that your child, let's say it's your child, isn't getting bullied or abused at home by someone in the household and you're unaware of it, or by a sibling or by a neighbor. This gets us into pretty serious territory. And make sure that the academic and behavior expectations by the school are reasonable. Because guess what? I have a thing about this because I did a lot of supervision of student teachers. there are mean teachers, there are unreasonable teachers, and there are teachers who bully kids. And you don't want to be blaming your kid for their bad behavior or sudden change in behavior if it's really the school.
Yeah.
And oh boy, do I have a story about that. There was a father when I was training student teachers who I heard about. I didn't know him myself, but a colleague told me the story of a parent in the school where she was supervising, went to the principal and said, my kindergarten child is not happy in so-and-so's classroom, and I want my child to be switched. And the principal said, we don't switch children from class to class. The child just has to learn to adapt. And it went on and on and on like that. And the father said, okay, I will try to help him do that. Went home, a couple of weeks later, came back. The principal said the same thing. And the father said, listen, you change my kid's class or you'll never forget what I'm going to do to you.
Oh boy.
He threatened him. And the next day, the kid was in a new classroom. I mean, now that's an extreme thing that parent was willing to do. But I say now, after thinking about it for many, many years, that parent, maybe there was another way, but that parent understood his job was to defend his kid in that case. But now let's take the situation of a kid who is doing the abusing or the bad behavior or whatever. And I have to tell you a story about my older son, which I hadn't thought about for years, so thank you very much. Okay, so my older son, he'd kill me if he knew I was doing this, but I won't tell you his name, so I forget where we were, but maybe in the playground. And he bit another kid. Okay, now that's bad behavior. And instead of blowing up at him, I had the presence of mind, luckily, to say, what made you do that? And he said, well, Sarah bit me. So I thought it would be okay to bite my friend Josh. To me, I'm sorry, I still think it's hilarious, right? But in that case, happily, when I explained to him that that's not the greatest way to settle a dispute or an argument with a friend, there are other ways to do it. He hasn't bitten anyone since, I don't think. And he's well over 40 now. So there was a case where it was a concerning behavior, but it didn't amount to anything, right? Other things he did I was not so happy with, but this was just, a crazy 3-year-old's, learning. So there was that. And then, and I'll try to sum it up, there was another kid in that nursery school class when I observed, just as a parent, this other kid was just standing there looking around, but mostly looking at a record player going around and around in circles, and stood there, wasn't talking to anybody, wasn't doing anything, just staring at the record player. And I guess I was concerned because I've remembered it to this day. Well, guess what? Danny was his name. Like his father, is a world-renowned mathematician, taught at Harvard, Yale. He's made the circuit in Ivy League. Now, he might have been on the spectrum somewhere, very mild, I would guess, but so what? I don't know that I would have rushed him off to a therapist. I could call his mother. I still occasionally speak to her and see what happens, what happened in that way for him. But not everything that's unusual is a catastrophe.
Right.
Is the point I want to make. And before you freak out about something your child is doing, ask them, what made you do that? How is it that you came to bite your best friend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's good that you say that. Just because there's a little something, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Because I can definitely go off the deep end and think, oh, she's dyslexic. She's never going to learn to read. She's going to live with me forever. We're going to be on welfare. And it's just
Yeah,
snowballs.
you go catastrophizing is the wonderful
Yeah.
word for it. This woman that I've been working with, who's she's too competent. So she takes on everything that the three of us could take on, and then wonders why she's upset, right? And having migraines and whatever else. She has some symptoms that come on, and she finally understands that it's not the end of the world. And she had some symptoms that were very upsetting, like, do I have a brain tumor? Am I going blind? What's the matter with me? And someone had once said to me, just because you have extreme symptoms doesn't mean that you're seriously ill. The symptoms can be bad, but the disease can be, you're just overloaded, which was the truth for her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes with kids, different situations that happen in their life, like it does affect them physically. Like I can tell when I'm really, really stressed because I get really bad headaches, I'll be nauseous or whatever. And it would just be really foolish to think that if our kids aren't stressed out, that they're not going to feel well either, and they're not going to start lashing out or acting weird or acting a certain way, because the stress on their bodies, it must be more than on an adult body, because sometimes they have to deal with very big feelings.
That's such a good point, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I forgot to put it on my list. That if your child is having physical symptoms that don't seem to go away, you want to check it out with their doctor. But also, it can be psychological. I noticed when I was supervising student teachers that all the second graders seem to have stomach aches. Now, I don't know why or what new challenge was on their plate, but something. It was different teachers, so it wasn't the teacher. Second grade in that particular school was very boring. They had to practically memorize the dictionary. It was a ridiculous curriculum, but I don't think that was what caused it. There was an anxiety that cropped up when they were about 7. So that's always been interesting to me.
Yeah.
The other thing you can look for is what the school says, right? Because a lot of times it is true that they pick up things that a parent won't. So I think you can use that as a guide, with the caveat that, hello, it could be the teacher, right? But not necessarily at all.
Right.
This brings up, so I guess going back to the biting and then asking, the child why they did that. So
I still laugh. I can't help it.
I was a biter when I was a kid.
Okay.
So my mom would get calls from my school like, oh, she bit another kid today. So I just, like, if somebody took my toy or took something that I was playing with, I would just bite them. Which I think is, it's.
You see me laughing, right? It's just funny to me. Like, where did you get that idea? I'm very curious. Let's play.
But it's. I feel like, so that it kind of brings up the, kids, they're not. I see kids as very pure, and they, kids aren't born evil. They're not born to do harm. They're not born, and so I think that, like, that idea of asking them why they did something and having them explain in their own words might be better than just, saying like, oh, that's bad or whatever, like, I wonder if, like, because I think I did this probably several times. It probably lasted, because they kept calling my mom. They were like, okay, for real, like your kid, like, I don't understand. Because I mean, the funny thing about that is I would bite boys in the butt because I guess they feel part of them. I don't know. Anyway,
Probably, I'm sure they deserved it.
so
so funny.
And then like it kind of progressed to like, I remember I had like this really huge life-size teddy bear, and I was trying to get it to sit still and it kept leaning forward, and then I bit the teddy bear because it wasn't listening to me when I was telling it to just sit there, because teddy bears were alive in my brain. And then I remember I bit a bouncy ball because it kept bouncing away from me. So I mean, I feel like I feel like maybe people were just telling me like, no, don't do that, instead of explaining to me why that wasn't helpful.
Why? Yeah.
And so I feel like had somebody explained to me, okay, this isn't the best way to handle whatever, it would have been easier, and I probably would have stopped doing it earlier than I did. I feel like kids, a lot of times we forget. I feel like a lot of people forget that, kids, they're little and they don't have all the development that we have, and so when I see, parents will like yell at their kids or something, like, yeah, sometimes a kid, okay, sometimes, you yell at your kid, whatever, but I feel like it might be better to explain things to them and kind of make it into like, turn it into like a teaching moment versus you're behaving badly.
Absolutely. You're speaking my language.
And all of this has me, it's fascinating to me. I'm like, I'm like amped right now.
Well, this is why you do this. I think you're very lucky to have thought up this podcast. It was so needed. I can't tell you, I wish that you had been doing it when I was a young mother.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think half the time it's just knowing that you're not alone. Because like,
Exactly.
I'm thinking, am I a crazy person? I'm the only one
Yep.
dealing with this. So just knowing there's other people out there who also deal with it, you're like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy.
Yes.
It helps so much to know that
Yes.
you're not the only one out there. There's like a community of us.
When my older son was very young, we had a mother's group. That was the best we could do for each other, and we would hang out. One of us was a nursery school teacher, and I'm telling you, we just lapped up everything she could teach us. And one thing happened that was fascinating. You know about separation anxiety for a kid, right? If your kid won't go to school, that I could have put that on the list, right? Parents get so upset, and the next thing they're on the phone scheduling an appointment with a therapist. You know what she did? Her daughter didn't want to go to school and would scream and cry. She had her husband take the kid to school.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same wrench.
Yeah.
It was not. Rachel went to school, and she's now. If you're listening, Rachel is a tax attorney in California.
Wow.
Doing just fine, thank you.
Yeah.
Right. All these people grow up and they're good as long as we don't freak out about every little thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think I definitely it's interesting because before I became a mom, obviously I didn't think about all of this, but now that I'm a mom, plus I've managed my depression, I'm on medication. I recently found out that I actually have ADHD, and so I started medication for that, and I just feel so clear-minded for the first time ever.
Wonderful.
So now I'm thinking about all these things about like, how can I, and I'm really into the whole kind of letting your kid kind of learn on their own, and like not really making it so strict and structured. And and I mean, kids, like I said, they're naturally, they're not born evil. They're not, I mean, if anything, giving them too much structure and being too strict might be harmful to them.
There are studies that support what you're saying 100%. There was a famous study done at Harvard in which mothers were classified as either A mothers, B mothers, or C mothers. I forget what B mothers were, but A mothers were very structured. If the kid, every hour was accounted for, the child had to play with this or that. There are the parents who put words on all the objects around the house, like refrigerator on the refrigerator. I had one kid who was brought in because he hated school because his parents had tortured him to learn before he even went.
Right.
So C mothers are what you're talking about, Lisa, that the kids were allowed to play on their own. And when they had a problem or a question, they would come around, and that was the moment, the teachable moment, where the mom could say, well, did you try this? Or how about that? And another great secret, you want to get your kid to clean up their room, don't yell at them. Do, which I did. Don't do what I did. Help them do it.
Yeah.
And make it a fun thing.
Yeah. I'll ask Lily, hey, do you want to help mommy clean up the blocks? And she sings a song and she goes, clean up, clean, and
okay, you got it.
And it's so, like, I love seeing her development and how she's growing up and learning things. And, and I don't want to squash that. And plus I am, so I don't know, I just, because then later in life, as the kid grows up, they kind of are, they expect perfection from themselves because, they were kind of brought up that way. And so later in life, they might be really stressed out or depressed. I mean, I remember I was in high school when I lived in Boston, and I remember the student committed suicide. I didn't know her, but she just couldn't handle the pressure, and it was too much anxiety and stress. And, so now thinking about that today, I'm like, oh my God, like I would never want to put my children through that much stress. It's just not necessary. I had cancer in high school. I just recently did an episode about that.
Wow.
And I feel like that kind of taught me to not sweat the small stuff, or, and so I kind of learned that early because of the cancer. But I feel like that's kind of taught me to parent my children kind of that same way, like not everything, you don't have to get A's all the time. Not everything's a test. It's okay to just experience life and have fun. And, she's learned, Lily is so smart, and she's learned most of it on her own.
It's beautiful. Maybe we have to broadcast this because I do believe it. Sometimes I think, or often I think, that school is vastly overrated.
Oh yeah, and I'm a school teacher, and sometimes I teach kindergarten, but everyone knows my classroom is open to everybody. So sometimes these high school girls will come down and they're like, Miss Brittany, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, guys, you're here for 4 years. It doesn't matter. Like, let's just say everyone hates you. They don't hate you, but let's just say that. Let's say everyone hates you. You're out of here in 2 years or whatever. You're going to go live your life. You can move anywhere you want. You're an adult.
I love it.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You can make mistakes too along the way that you can fix. So one thing that was said to me that I found very helpful, maybe it's a good closer in some ways, although we didn't get to talk about COVID. I know you wanted to. Do we have more time or no?
Oh, we have unlimited time. So just, okay. we can talk as long as you guys want.
I wanted to stick in what a wonderful therapist colleague said to me when I was very upset about my younger son, because I have 2 kids, both over 40. My older one sailed through. It's a typical story in some ways, and loved school. He hated vacation. And I thought that was really strange. I should have taken him to a therapist for that. Anyway, he's been very successful in the traditional ways. My younger son just as smart, if not smarter, by my older son's admission. Hated school, didn't want to go and refused to go and didn't go after he was close to 16. That was it. No more school. And he did everything he wasn't supposed to do. I won't even bother you with the details. And I talked to my friend Erin, who was a wonderful therapist and also had started as a reading specialist. You might be interested in that. Anyhow, he said to me, I said, what did I do wrong? You know, I tried so much, I did so much similar, and they are totally different people, but I'm still the same mother. What did I do? And he said, no, what you have to realize is if he didn't have you, it would be even worse. He'd be sleeping under a bridge somewhere. That was one thing he said to make me feel better. And the other was, whatever you do, don't ruin your relationship with him over anything. And he died a whole bunch of years ago, this wonderful therapist, wonderful man. And I have followed that like a mantra. I adore my younger son. We are close. It's not perfect. He tells me what's wrong with me all the time, but he's talking. He's talking to me. I listen to him. He makes me climb mountains, which I hate. We have fun.
Oh.
So I want to show you something because I'm having so much fun. And this is a good segue, actually.
It's a puppy.
It's a puppy. This is Jakey, which is my younger son's puppy from when he was a little boy, and he left him with me for safekeeping. So
That's so precious.
And you know what's funny? Clients come in, and very often they'll play with him or, you know, whatever. It's great play therapy. So that's that.
We're going to take another short break. Go refill your coffee. We're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about the pandemic and how it's affected our kids, but we'll keep it lighthearted.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Imagine a world where potty training is fun, fast, and easy. Only pull-ups have Disney graphics that fade when wet to teach big kids to stay dry. So they're motivated to keep the music going.
I'm a big kid now.
Crest Gum and Sensitivity turns your emotions to You like your drinks nice and cold, but the sensitive teeth thing is getting old. Time to say goodbye to the pain, cause having sensitive teeth is just so lame.
Crest Gum and Sensitivity turns your emotions to
80% of sensitivity starts at the gum line. Treat it at the source with Crest Gum and Sensitivity. Crest. Healthy, beautiful smiles for life.
No matter what all the baby experts say, the perfect way to care for your baby is your own way. And that inspired our perfect diaper to be the softest ever with plant-based materials. Huggy Special Delivery.
Enjoying this show? Be sure to check out all the shows across the Podcast Entertainment Network, where there's a show for every interest. Visit www.podcastentertainment.com to browse through the full collection of shows. And now, back to the Imperfect Moms Club on the Podcast Entertainment Network.
Let's jump right back into it. This is our last segment, and I'm kind of sad because I really like talking to you, and I don't want this to end.
I mean, seriously, like, could you like adopt me, please?
Well, I have to put my own kids up for adoption first, but I'll let you know. I would love to. I'm having such a great time.
Good. This is so great. We'll have to have her. We need to have her back, Lisa.
Yes.
Yay! Okay. All right. Segue along or transition along.
All right. So we're going to start talking about the COVID era, how it's affected our kids, you know, all that fun stuff. I don't really know. There's no way to make COVID fun.
Yes, I did. I did it.
Oh my God, I need to know.
Well, I did a book Well, I have to set the scene, right?
Okay.
I'm talking to my friend from 4th grade named Maxine, and we're talking on the phone because it's right in the middle of COVID, and the vaccines have just come out for seniors. So we're saying, oh boy, when are we going to get ours, all that. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, Maxine, vaccine. I said, oh my God, Maxine, your name rhymes with vaccine. You have to write a book called Maxine Gets Her Vaccine. And she said, no, I don't write books, Elena, you do it. And I said, well, do it with me. No, I'm not going to do it, but you do it. So I said, okay, Maxine. So I did it. And I'll show you the book.
Oh my
Yes.
I thought you might have known already, but let me see. See, here it is.
Oh, I already love it. I only saw the back of it and I already love it. Oh,
Yes,
look at that.
That's the front. I had a wonderful, wonderful illustrator. I have to promote her too. But here's Maxine vowing that she will never, 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 never get her vaccine shot.
I've got to look this up.
It's on Amazon.
Oh my God, I'm gonna buy it. Right.
She is. I have to. It's so weird because I thought of her, and worked with the illustrator very closely. I loved her, paintbrush braids and stuff. And I love her because she doesn't second guess herself. She doesn't care what other people think. Can you imagine that? And I wish, you probably can tell I have some pretty strong opinions, but I then second guess myself, and I have since I was 6, which is her age. So I would say what I thought and then get very upset that I hurt someone's feelings, that I said the wrong thing, that I was
that's my biggest problem too.
Yes, she doesn't do that. She just says what she thinks, and that's it.
Wow.
And she's vowed to her parents that she is never getting that shot. But she does get it. And who convinces her? I'll give you a hint. Most people, I make them buy the book. But
I know the answer.
Jakey saved the day.
That's so cute.
He got his puppy booster shot, and he reminds her that he's fine. She said, Jakey, if you come with me, I will get my shot.
That's so cute. So you gotta make it fun for the kids.
I don't think she thought it was fun, but she didn't think it was horrible. And it goes through, I realize, all the things that kids go through. He won't play with her the way he's supposed to, and she doesn't have her friends, so that's a problem. First he has to get his shot, and she gets very upset. And then she tries to convince her parents that Jakey shouldn't get his booster shot, but no, she doesn't win that one. And then, she takes him. I love the book because the illustrations are so great. You can't really see, but what can I show you? Oh yeah, they have to wash their hands and paws.
Oh, he's so cute.
He's very, oh my God, she blows me away though. And here she is in school, and he wants to play, right? So she has to do remote schooling, which is weird. And it goes on and on and on. And let me see. And then she has, and then her best friend, who is my best friend still from birth, tells her that the vaccine doesn't make you well, it makes you sick.
Oh.
Well, so we have a problem. So they have to go to the doctor, who is my friend Gary, and he's in the book this part I love, because at the end she plays doctor and teaches her friend Francie that the vaccine is okay because Dr. Gary says so.
Oh, just got a little hat.
Anyway,
I wanted to talk about COVID, the virus, but I wanted to talk about the effects of children, the effects of like quarantine and, having to change the way they do things.
So when we first went into quarantine, it was just really weird. I think everyone was just like, what is going on?
Exactly. How old are your kids? Let me just
So my Clara is 6 and Molly just turned 4. So
your 6-year-old, I hope, loves this book. I hope you get it for her.
yeah, she would love that. And I can tell her I spoke with the author. So Mommy's pretty cool. But yeah, it was just weird. And I remember, like everyone stayed inside. We didn't go to stores or anything. And I remember even my husband, who's like the least social person ever, who hates going on errands, is like, I just want to go to Walmart. I'm like, whoa, are you okay, man?
That's desperation, I'll say.
Yeah, we tried to we still tried to do school, and it was hard because we couldn't do birthday parties. We couldn't have grandma come visit in the summer like we used to. Christmas was different. It was just different, but we still tried to make it as fun as possible and not let on to the kids that maybe I was freaking out or maybe Mike was freaking out, because we're also trying to run the school, and we're like, what the heck are we supposed to do? How do we keep the school year going? How do we get these kids to graduate and all that? So just trying to keep it as normal as possible for them as far as home life. We tried that, but and then having them to wear their masks their first day, they were such troopers. When we took them out for the first time wearing masks, I thought, oh, this is gonna be a nightmare. They're gonna rip them off. They're not gonna want to wear them. But I let them pick out their own fabric, and it had princesses on it.
Great idea.
Yeah, so one of them got Cinderella, the other one got Beauty and the Beast, and they thought that was cool, and now they're obsessed with hand sanitizer. They love their hand sanitizer. I'm like, you're gonna dry your skin out. Stop. Just stop. But I mean, it broke my heart as a mom, I think, more than theirs, because grandma couldn't come for Christmas. We couldn't have a big birthday party. No, we can't go out to Susan's house or whatever. So it was hard. It's hard. It's still hard now, even though we're kind of getting out of it. I don't know. Every time we seem like we're turning a corner, we're not really turning a corner.
I know. I'm just as confused as everybody else.
Yeah.
Do I get a booster? Don't I get a booster? But like so many things, but particularly with this, I think it's okay to tell kids that you're scared if you are, right? But you want to have your scaredness under some control when you tell them.
Right.
And just say, look, we'll get through this together as best we can. We're doing the best we can. Mm-hmm. And that's all a person can do. It's about accepting that this is a crazy situation that nobody knows totally how to handle. And even grown-ups don't know how to do it perfectly. But I think the truth helps a lot. Mm-hmm. You don't have to emphasize how many people are dying, all the statistics, but yes, if the people who are not careful are having problems, but we're being careful, whatever you think, the language to use.
Yeah,
for sure.
Mm-hmm. So we had to, all 4 of us in our family, we had to all get a COVID test yesterday, because we were exposed and all that. And my youngest daughter already had a test, so she was fine with it, because after the test, I went and got her hash brown from McDonald's. So she was like, yes, we're getting McDonald's after. She was excited. But my other one was a little more nervous. She tends to be, I don't want to say dramatic, because that's not quite the word, but she just kind of all of her feelings are right here for you to feel. And it's either the best day of my life or it's the worst day of my life. There's not a lot of middle. And she was kind of freaking out about this test. And I'm like, listen, mommy and daddy are going to do it too. It's just a quick little thing up your nose. You pick your nose all the time. Come on. And then I tried to get him to laugh during the thing, which I think helped. I was like, listen, pulls the Q-tip and she swabs your nose. If she gets a booger, I'll give you $1. And they thought that was the funniest thing. had friends who had to get theirs done, and they're like, yeah, they pulled out a massive booger when they pulled the Q-tip out. So I was like, okay, cool. If you get a booger, you get $1. And then this was like, thank you so much. That makes my job so much easier. So no one got any dollars yesterday, but it made it a little easier.
And did they come? Do you have the test results?
We have 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 of us are fine. The last one we don't know yet. I don't know why they haven't told me. Again, I'm trying not to freak out.
Right. Don't freak it out.
So I'm just waiting on that last one. I mean, like, she's my 6-year-old. I can't make her stay in her room. So like, we're together.
You know what? Her wearing her feelings on her sleeve, I think, is typical of that age. Mm-hmm. That's this. I made her 6 years old, and I'm so removed from that. I had no daughters either, and I barely remember being 6. But it does seem to be the time where they have a tremendous emotions and not much of a way of controlling them. Mm-hmm. So, but for me, I think it's glorious that say this kid Maxine and your daughter have I'll call them tantrums or freakouts, meltdowns, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. That means they're able to feel their feelings and gradually moderate it over time. But don't freak out. If you then have a tantrum, it's not such a great idea. Mm-hmm. Although, I don't know, you can try it.
Lily's only 2, so she has these big emotions, and then she doesn't have any tools or any ways to cope with them.
Right, nothing. Right. Yeah. So I could tell you the coffee yogurt story. You want to hear that?
Yes.
Again, my older son who bit his friend, he wanted coffee yogurt, and we were sitting in the backyard. And at that time, there was, I think, one brand. There were 2 brands. Dannon coffee yogurt was the yogurt of the day, and he had to have it. And it was about 8 o'clock, and the supermarket in the small town we were living in was closed, and I knew it. And he insisted that he had to have it. And I said, well, we just don't have it. I can't make it happen. And he insisted he had to have it. And I said, you can have vanilla. We have that. No, I want coffee. And the moon was just coming up at night, and it was beautiful outside, and I was having fun with him. And I said, you know what? I want the moon, and I want you to get it for me. I don't know what. And he looked all upset, and he said, but I can't. And I said, well, I can't get you coffee yogurt either. I could, but I can't. I don't know if he remembers that. I should ask him.
That's such a sweet story.
Isn't it? It's just a moment. Listen, I had horrible moments too that I'm totally not proud of, and you should hear that also, but we shouldn't end on that note. Mm-hmm. Right? I can tell you one that stays in my mind forever with my younger son. I was chasing him around a big round table we had when he was maybe, I don't know, 7, 8. And I don't know what I was so angry at him about. And I thought to myself, if I catch up with him, I'm going to kill him. It was a thought, and my mother used to say that, I'm going to kill you kids. So it wasn't anything that I knew I would do, but I was so heated up and so out of control myself. It was insane. Mm-hmm. So I stopped myself because I heard that thought, and I realized I wasn't planning to actually kill him. And I apologized. It was all I could do.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. I was as much of a jerk as you were being.
Yeah, I do that with my kids. Like, you know what? I do lose my cool. I'm not a perfect mom. I lose my cool. And you know what? It was like a couple weeks ago because I call it flying solo because my husband was gone for a few days. So I was doing it by myself, flying solo. And I was just so frustrated. And I'm like, just put your shoe on. It is not that hard.
Right, right.
And she just wouldn't
do it.
Right? Yeah. So I just said, I just said shoes, like really loud at her. Cause I'm like, this is like the 20th time I've asked you to put your shoes on. And she started to cry. And I was just like, okay, nope. That was bad. That was bad because I knew she misses daddy too. She's tired too. And that was not cool of me. So no. And so then she got her shoe on and I had her come over. I gave her a hug and I said, Mommy is so sorry. I should not have yelled at you. I hurt your feelings and I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? And the kids always forgive so quick and it just like kills me even more. I'm like, oh, I don't deserve it.
That's because are both your kids girls?
Oh yeah. They're both glitter and princesses everywhere.
Okay. So that same younger son, I once apologized to him for something or other. And he said to me, no, Mom, no more chances.
Oh, no. God.
I mean,
that's great.
It's so funny. That's what I just love. When I look back on all the child rearing years, I miss it because it was so much fun in between the terrible stuff, that went on too. Be good to yourself if you possibly can. And if you can't, hire a consultant to help you do it. It'll make you feel stronger and better, and it can even be fun. You could even laugh, right? People have said to me when they hear what goes on in my office, they say, well, why are people laughing? I said, because life is funny sometimes. It just is.
Yeah.
And whatever you do, don't ruin your relationship with your kids, right? Which means you may be a pushover sometimes, and it's
I
okay.
definitely am.
Yeah.
How can people listening find you and like find your book and just
all right?
Because they need to. I'm gonna tell them like, look up this person right now. So
okay. It's ELB, my initials. There are elbtherapy.com and then /books if they want to get the Maxine book. If they want to just look at the website, they don't need to put /books. Right?
Right.
But
yeah.
That's basically it.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely buying that book. I don't know about you, Brittany.
Yeah, I need that.
Want to get in touch with the show? Email us at imperfect@podcastentertainment.com. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Imperfect Moms Club.